Whereas, like, say, a Chappelle, it feels like he's just going like an hour.
Well, he's got a very unique process, Chappelle does. And he can turn over an hour like no one I've ever seen before. And I was talking to Donnell Wrongs about it recently, who, was on the Chappelle show with him. And he's like, we both agreed, like, he's the best ever at turning over a new hour. He could have he could release a Netflix special and then have a new hour within a couple of weeks. It doesn't even make sense. I don't understand how he's doing it.
It must just flood in.
He's in a great space, He's in a great mindset to do comedy. If you pay attention to how, when people study, like if you read Outliers, and you read how when people study why people are great at what they do and what makes them exceptional, there's always a variety of factors. And whatever the factors are with Dave, he's got this easygoing personality, this like very carefree way of looking at things. He's also gone through a lot of bullshit in his career with, the leaving the Chappelle show and, abandoning $50 million and going to Africa and really understanding what his real motivation were. He was caught up in that world where they were trying to change him and commercialize his television show, and he handled it as good as anybody that's ever handled it.
Yeah.
He handled fame and temptation, I think, better than anyone I've ever heard of. He just said, fuck you. And he just went away. He went away and then didn't do gigs for years. People don't understand. He would show up and do stand-up places, but he wouldn't book anything. So, like, he wasn't getting paid. He did stand-up. Dave Chappelle did stand-up in the park in Seattle. He brought like a little amplifier and a microphone, set up, and just started doing stand-up, and people just gathered around. And he did this just to sort of get him back in touch with his roots, because he used to do a lot of street performing in New York, and I saw him do street performing in Montreal. We did a club, and then we came out of the club, and I think Dave was like 18 or 19 at the time, just started doing stand-up on the street and put his hat out, and people would put money in his hat. I mean, he was constantly sharpening that sword. And he stopped doing stand-up for a long time in terms of like booking gigs. And then after a while, I said, fuck it, I'm going to come back again. And then he started doing these gigantic gigs. And then, of course, he did his 2 recent Netflix specials were amongst his best work ever. And, and now he's working all the time. He's constantly popping into the Comedy Store and the Comedy Cellar and all these different clubs all across the country and constantly doing stand-up. And social media. He does not involved in any of that stuff. Doesn't do anything. Just performs. Just does his stuff.
Yeah, that's interesting. It's like I feel that some people like found their essence and found their path and live it.
Yeah.
Like like they're a yogi or a priest or something.
That's right.
That he's just got a devotional. This is who I am. I'm not doing anything that's not that. And that's exhibited even in earlier stuff prior to the crisis of the 50 million walkaway thing. Like by then, if he was at 18 doing them clubs, he was hardened. What seemed so loose on stage was something that had been refined. That's a person who's comfortable. And
he was always good. He was good when I first met him, when he was like 18. I think he was 18, I was 21, so it was somewhere in that range. Maybe I was a little older. Maybe he was like, how old's Dave? 46, 47? I think he's 5 years younger than me. Is that correct? 46 or 47? 45. Okay, so he's more. So 6 years. 6 years younger than me. So, I was probably 25 and he was probably 18-ish. 25, 26, 18, 17. But he was so, like, calm and, like, he was very, like, you were attracted to listening to him. It was like, look at this guy. Like, this guy's like so comfortable in his own skin and so friendly and easygoing and hilarious. But who he was then and then who he became is all the work that he put in. It's like he had this base of this really, this curious, young, very wise person who saw things that other people didn't see in the world. And then he just kept going and just kept going. And then, of course, the Chappelle Show, which is, in my opinion, the greatest sketch comedy show of all time, even though it was only 2 seasons. It's the best ever. And then after that, I mean, he's basically just done stand-up and done it completely outside of this system. He's done some parts in movies and shit like that, but for the most part, what he's doing is just stand-up. Completely outside of the Hollywood system. Completely free. just goes up, you know, just talks some shit, has a couple of drinks, laughs, and it's incredibly compelling. He's found his groove, you know, and it's a beautiful thing to watch as a fellow stand-up comedy practitioner when someone achieves this mastery level, like, you know, we were talking about, like this Hicks and Gracie of stand-up comedy level, because that's where he's at right now.
Yeah, I agree with you. Become who you are.
Yeah,
isn't it? He's become himself,
and he doesn't have things that are getting in the way of that. You know, that's what's really interesting. Like, you don't see him. He's not on social media. He's not on anything, Twitter or Facebook. He's not on any of that shit. He doesn't pay attention to any of it. He's just being a person, and doing stand-up, you know. It's and he doesn't have to, which is unique too. You know, he doesn't have to promote things. They just sell out.
Yeah, what an amazing example.
Yeah.
What an amazing example. I've got to promote some things.
Oh, what do you got? Wow, the book Mentors. Russell Brand's book Mentors.
I've really learned some powerful lessons there from the story of the apotheosis of comedy that Dave Chappelle's achieved. Here's these obligations.